All right, so we recently recreated the hit single from the band The Fray called Over My Head Cable Car here in my studio. Now, to make things interesting, we decided to bypass all of the studio hardware that we have here in the studio that I love and choose to use on every single production, and limited ourselves to recording the entire production using SSL's new audio interface, the SSL-18, for the entire recording process, and then to also mix the song entirely in the box using the same interface. Now, we also made a video documenting this entire thing. It was a really fun and interesting experiment. A lot of people watched it and asked for a follow-up of a mix breakdown. All right, number one was the song, right? We picked a song that already has a proven track record as a great song and a great production. So in this production, I assumed the role as the executive pretend producer, overseeing the whole process, attempting to essentially reverse engineer the entire original production to the best of my capability, with the exception of a couple small personal choices that I made. I also played the role as the engineer and the mixer here, so I had the luxury of doing all three. Now, the goal is to make the job of the mixer as easy as possible by doing as many things right on the front end. Now, if you're curious about that front end, check out the video where we actually produced this whole thing in one video, because I actually show you what we used and how we used it to get these captured performances. Okay, so before we get into this, I just wanted to share, number one, this video is sponsored by our friends at Sweetwater, and I was compiling a list of plugins that if I was going to another studio that I feel like I could basically do anything if I had access to these plugins there, and it's a short list. So Sound Toys, I put on there, a couple Brainworks plugins for saturation and for mastering, UAD Ultimate and FabFilter Mastering Bundle. The UAD Ultimate on Sweetwater right now is $3,400 off. So that's an Ultimate 13 plugin bundle for $599, and the FabFilter Mastering Bundle plugin collection is $469 right now. This whole entire list of Autotune, Melodyne, Sound Toys, Brainworks, UAD, and FabFilter total $27.59 for all these plugins. Now, they have a 24-month interest-free, so if you just need one or something like that, you can actually get a steal on some of these plugins. So if you don't know that you can even get plugins from Sweetwater, check the link in the description. I just made like a plugin must-have link. You can click that. It's got these listed on there. This is a good place to check when you're investing in plugins for mixing and for your iLok or iLok account, to get really great deals. And if you want to put it on your Sweetwater card, then you can pay it off over 6 months, or in some cases 24 months, which is kind of crazy. I would recommend just buy it outright. Don't do the financing, but if you have to, you can get it there. So I'll put that link down in the description. Now, let's take a look at the session. Now, the instrumentation of the session was very simple. I'll go through it here quickly. We've got the lead vocal, which we just did one singular vocal, no harmonies, no doubles. Then we have the piano, key parts of the song, vocal, piano, and then we have the bass here. Then we have some acoustic guitars, some electric guitars, some drums, and some tambourine. That is the entire instrumentation of the song. The next thing we'll take a look at is the production and how it changes through, right? Because not all of these things are happening at the same time, and they're changing throughout the different parts. So if we start at the beginning, we are with piano, vocals, and drum. Actually, the whole song starts with this loop. Now, the difference in how we did it was I just played a version of that loop on drums. Here's what it sounds like. I never knew that everything was falling through, that everyone I knew was waiting on a cue. And so we have that sort of like smaller, intimate feel there with just piano, vocals, and that loop just going consistently, but no low end, no guitars or anything like that. And then the verse evolves, the bass comes in, the acoustic guitar comes in, and the electric guitars come in. So listen to that change here.
Turn and run when all I needed was the truth, but that's how it's gotta be. It's coming down to nothing more than apathy.
So that's the back half of the verse, and then we're going into the chorus, which then has an even bigger lift.
And when it clears, and everyone knows I'm in over my head, with 8 seconds left.
So a couple things happen in the production change in the chorus. Number one, the acoustic goes from a single acoustic to 2 acoustics doubled, right? So that helps it have a lift, even though it's still just acoustic guitar, right? And then we have tambourine entering the equation, which actually makes a big difference in the excitement, feeling, emotion of the song. The guitars go from doing palm muted parts to open strumming, and there is a new part instead of them being doubled. There's this new lead melody that comes in. Then we have the post-chorus.
Let's rearrange. I wish you would straight.
And going back into the verses, the electric guitars drop out. It just goes to a simpler piano part and a single acoustic. So it feels that relief or release for the listener, like the calm down from the excitement. And then things start to build up again on the second half of the verse. The palm muted guitars start to come in.
We all just get along, but that's disregard. Find another friend and eat this.
And essentially the same thing repeats going back into the chorus. And then coming out of the chorus, there's this sort of drop out of acoustic electric guitars. The acoustic still hits a couple chords here, but it's a single acoustic. And then going into what I'm calling verse 3, it has the same sort of build up like we're going into the chorus again, but this time it is a down chorus. So the bass drops out, the acoustic guitar drops out, and the electric guitar drops out. In a different electric guitar part, a new part comes in that's obviously different.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head, over my head.
Bass comes back in.
8 seconds left in overtime. She's on your mind. She's on your mind. Everyone knows she's on your mind. Everyone knows I'm in over my head. I'm in over my head. I'm over my. Everyone knows.
And then we have the chorus out. So that's how the production, that's as simple as it is as far as the arrangement and instrumentation there. So now let's take a look at the session structure, okay? So the way I lay things out in the session, if I am working as the recording engineer or mixer, I want things to be laid out in a certain way. So it usually always starts with the click top, master fader or mix bus, vocals, most important part of the session. Then we have our bass and piano. If there are guitars, I have these little basic folders holding the guitars. Electric guitars are in their own tab. And then under that, we just have our drums and percussion. Now, the way everything is routed is, depending on the number of tracks, I'll use some buses. So we have these 3 different guitars. There are no buses here because these are just doubled and a single. I do have effects buses, meaning reverbs. For some of these, like the piano has its own reverb, the acoustic has its own reverb. The electric guitars are multi-mic'd. There's a somewhat close mic, and then there is a room mic for each layer of the electric guitar, which adds so much depth and dimension to the part that it makes placing in the mix infinitely easier. I want to talk more about that in a minute, but let's keep moving on. So those are bused to single channels so they can be panned, except for this down chorus guitar, which is just spread wide on that, and then there is a delay for that. The drums, same thing. If it's multi-mic'd, it's bust, except for the snare. I normally just bust the snare, even though there's only one track, so there's a bust there. And then tambourines, and all the drum tracks are going to a single drum bus. And then there is a plate reverb. Actually, I think it's a room. And that is automated throughout the mix, coming in and out in certain parts. As you notice, there's no samples, no bus, no parallel compression or anything like that. Okay, so now we've gone through what's in the session. Now I just want to kind of jump around and show you what I think actually matters, like big, important things that have made the biggest difference in my mixing evolution, I guess you could say. Bussing has been a massive part of it, because I used to just make a bunch of audio tracks or instrument tracks and then just load them up with EQs and then put effects on them, and then just occasionally I would write automation on a couple parts. And then bussing became a massive part of how this whole system works. So let's pack everything up here. Guitars, drums. Okay, and we're just left right here with the most important part of this session, which is the vocal here. Okay, so typically when we do vocals, there's usually more than just a lead. On most of the projects that I work on, there's a lead and maybe a double, or sometimes even a left and right double, and then we have harmonies, and then sometimes there's ad-libs. There's a lot of different elements to it, depending on the production and how much is trying to happen and how interesting certain parts are. But this is just a straight pop song, and we just kept it super minimal. So the bussing for this, there's actually no bussing, but typically what we would do is we would have a lead vocal bus and a background vocals bus, and all those background vocals would go to that background vocal bus, and all the leads, sometimes there's a lead chorus, sometimes there's lead verses, sometimes there's different singers doing leads, those all go to a lead vocal track. Now, in this case, since everything was mixed in the box and there was just one vocal, it's just an audio track. So let's take a look at what's on here. First off, there's tuning. We did Melodyne for pitch correction, and I actually had Gabe sort of handle his own vocal. He is a vocal guy and has recorded his voice a million times, so I had him come in and just throw on what he wants. I'm going to bypass this. This is auto-tune, Antares, and this is more for sound than it is pitch. So let's get into this first part here.
I never knew that everything was falling through, that everyone I knew was waiting on a cue to turn and run when all I needed was the truth.
All right, so what's going on here? We've got some reverb, some tail, some space, because this is a really intimate part, a really intimate feeling, right? Just pulling you right into the song. So we've got this really dry vocal. If we mute the reverbs here, this is what it sounds like.
I never knew that everything was falling through.
Solo it up.
That everyone I knew was waiting on a cue to turn and run when all I needed was the truth. But
so nice and dry. This is a great vocal mic. We're using the Soyuz 17 FET. It sounds great on Gabe's voice. This line of stuff going on here is mostly just compression. I've got a de-esser on here. It's doing some work.
I never knew that everything was falling through, that everyone I knew was waiting on a cue.
Not much though, just a little bit grabbing those sibilances. This is something I've been doing a lot lately, and I typically do this out of the box, but I try to replicate it here in the box. It's just using a tube tech, grabbing all the fast transients.
I never knew that.
It's a really transparent, great pop vocal compressor, great vocal compressor in general. This is a lot of producers use this on vocals. And as you can see, you know, in the beginning, the delivery is very intimate, right? He's not doing a lot of projecting, but in the chorus,
everyone knows I'm in over my head, with
a lot of projecting going on there. And then right in the beginning,
I never knew I never knew that.
It's still right here, right up in your face. So I'm doing what's called serial compression, which is I have one instance of one type of compressor, and then I have two instances of an opto compressor after that. And
I never knew.
this is just barely touching the vocal, you know, 3, maybe 4 or 5 dBs max.
I never knew.
And then the exact same compressor right after that.
I never knew. I never knew that.
So this is preventing it from having too much of a sonic effect on it, but it's taming it and keeping it right here up in our face, which just works great for vocals. Then after that, I have this EQP 1A Legacy, and the only thing on here is I'm just rolling off, attenuating the 100 hertz a little bit, and I barely am boosting some 10K at a broad thing. That's it. It's DS, a lot of compression, and a little bit of EQ. And then the last instance is I'll do this Pro L. Usually I'll keep this off for most of the mix, and then I'll put it on, and it just allows it to sort of stand right on top of the rest of the mix. You know, depending on the song, sometimes that's not what you want. But let's listen to it with the space here.
I never knew that everything was falling through.
So we've got two different things going on here. We've got this room sound from RMX16, an AMS RMX16 old reverb unit. It's one of my, I think it's such a cool sound on vocals.
I never knew that everything was falling through.
It's almost got like a little bit of like modulation kind of sound to it, but it's just widens everything and without it being a long tail. And then the Lexicon is doing the long tail. This is 480L, and we're doing a medium haul.
I never knew that everything was falling.
So when you mix that in,
I never knew that everything was falling through. That everyone I knew was waiting on a cue to turn and run when all I needed.
and that tail is just so nice wrapping around those piano chords. So with that being said, let's jump over to the piano, which is going to be a perfect representation of the rest of this mix, which is a little bit of EQ, a little bit of compression. I've got this Pro Q filtering out some lows and pulling out a little bit of mids, 3 dB and 2.5 dB of adding some presence. Now this piano it's a keyboard. It's a Roland keyboard that we have in here, and it's just direct out. So this is just the stock sound of this keyboard.
I never knew.
Just opened up a little bit of space in the low and mid frequencies, and added some brightness for the attack on an articulation for a lot of the busier parts. And then this compression just keeps it just made it feel more appropriate for this track.
I never knew that everything was falling through.
Barely compressing it during this part, but when we get busier, you'll hear where the compressor really kicks in.
Was the truth, but that's how it's gotta be. It's coming down to nothing more than apathy. I'd rather
Again, still just a little bit. It looks like 2 dB.
smoke and hoop. Everyone knows I'm in over my head with these.
Okay, so vocals and piano are like the real heart of the song here. Bass, this is direct. We've got an opto compressor on here. Let's see what's happened. I'll jump to the chorus so we can really hear the high dynamics.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head with these.
Not a lot, just a little bit, keeping it consistent. Boosting a little bit of 60 hertz here and attenuating, and then boosting a little bit of 3K and attenuating at 10 on the bass. Let's listen to the bass in solo. And then we've got this multi-band compressor just hugging some of the low mids on the bass. Let's hear it raw. I like it better without all of that crap in it, honestly. It sounds really, really great just as is. In fact, I kind of feel like the EQ and compression actually sucks the life out of it. So let's just turn that off.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head.
The mix is never done. Actually, while we're here, let's do the same thing to the vocal. That'll be fun to hear it totally raw. Let's go back to the intro.
I never knew.
I'm gonna leave the effects on, but I'm gonna bypass all the other stuff. We'll listen to it in the context.
I never knew that everything was falling through, that everyone I knew was waiting on a cue.
So you can really hear those dynamics there, like coming in and out. So the compressors are helping there. Definitely were important.
I never knew that everything.
Let's hear it on the chorus. It'll be fun to hear on the chorus.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head, with 8 seconds left in no.
All right, so we're gonna turn back on our compression and EQ here.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head, with 8 seconds left in overtime.
So, absolutely great. Now, another explanation for why there's 3 compressors on the vocal is normally when we cut vocals with a compressor on. And with this interface that we use, you actually can do that, but we didn't. We just wanted to go straight through the box and nothing else. So there's a lot more compression on the mix. Whereas normally I might not use as much compression on the actual mix. And because it's compressed on the way in, which is holding some of those notes and keeping them a little bit tighter. Let's move on. Let's go to acoustic guitars. Okay, so the acoustic guitars were really, really fun. We did a single stereo mic'd acoustic for the verses and maybe bridge. And let's listen to that. A lot of compression happening there. That was sort of a later decision in the mix where it just needed to be sort of right up there. Same thing with that vocal. Again, because there's no compression happening on the input, where I would also normally compress the acoustic on the input a little bit. So let's bypass the acoustics, compression and EQ real quick. God, I do. It sounds so much better without that compression in solo, right? So let's listen to it.
It's gotta be. It's coming down to nothing more than apathy. I'd rather run.
Let's add this EQ in here, see what that's doing. It's just pulling out some of the lows.
It's gotta be. It's coming down to nothing more than apathy. I'd rather run.
All right, now let's add in the compression again.
The smoking who's still standing when it clear. It's gotta be. It's coming down to nothing more than apathy.
So again, this is one of those situations where you got to be careful getting into solo mode and making decisions in solo, because you know what sounds good on its own sometimes isn't right for the overall part of the song. You got to make sure everything you're doing is serving the part in that song. So in this case, I don't love the compression in solo. It sounds like it's sucking some of the life out of it, and definitely the dynamics. But in the verse, it is serving its purpose. So
how it's gotta be. It's coming down to nothing more than apathy. I'd rather run the other way than stay and see.
And then the other acoustic part is in the chorus, which is these doubled acoustics, where we just did one of the mics instead of stereo mics. So let's listen to those. I'm gonna do it in the context first.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head, with 8
Same thing, a lot of compression going on here. Also rolling out a lot of the body of the acoustic. And that's just because the chorus is a big moment where everything's happening. So we need that space down below in the lower register for the kick drum, for the bass, for whatever else is going on. The piano's really busy down there. I think he's hitting some low notes. And the acoustic in that section is really serving more as a percussive element. It's like it's there to support the chords, but it's really more of the high mids that we're looking to get out of it. And if you listen, you notice that each one of those parts that I solo occupies a different space, and none of them are competing with each other. It is very clearly high, so it's nice and easy to hear every single one of those things, and then of course you add vocal on that.
Everyone knows I'm in over my...
And it's just easy to hear everything, and that's what you want. You want it to be emotional, and you want it to be easy to hear what's happening there, so that it can actually move the listener. All right, moving on to the electric guitars, just powering right through this. This is what I wanted to come back to. So the way we tracked electric was with a close mic and a room mic. Now the close mic technically was a little over 1 foot off of the actual speaker of the amp, and this is a WA-19. You can see here I have a little bit of EQ on both of these mics, just high pass filter basically. Then a compressor, and then more high pass and a little bit of low stuff here. So let's listen to the guitars, the electric guitars in the chorus here.
Everyone knows I'm in over.
Now again, talking about occupying space within the mix, there's no low end in these electric guitars. Also, not competing with the acoustic. Now, if you listen to the electric guitars, it'll sound like there's a reverb on them. That's literally just the room mic. You know, like you could use a room reverb if you don't use a room mic, but it does so much of the work for you if you just put up another mic in the room and you capture both of those together. It makes such a difference. Let's just listen to it without the room mic. I like the sound of it. I like the sound of the mic, again, in solo. But let's try it this way. I'm gonna mute the room mics for both the guitars and the chorus.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head with a second.
Not bad, but it feels smaller. Also, it feels a little bit more difficult to hear them. Let's add the room mics in.
Everyone knows I'm in over my head,
You can just feel the air of that room, the space that the amp is in, and it does so much of the work for you. You can see on this guitar, on the right side of the mix, is mostly room mic. Freaking rules. It's depth. That's what you're getting with the space. You're getting depth in the sound of that guitar, which just places it perfectly in the mix. That's what we want. We want everything to be in its own space and to feel three-dimensional and wide and up and down and low and beautiful and clear, and just everything have its own perfect space to where it's like having its own special effect on you. That was like a weird thing I did there, but I love it. I feel like the room mic is like a cheating tool for mixing. If you have that room in there, it's the same thing with the drums. Let's quickly jump over to the drums here. You can see, let's do drums in solo with no room mic. It's fine. Sounds really fat and close. Let's add the room mic in. And then when you add in the tambourines, and I wanted just a little bit more room on here, so I added a lexicon room, and I actually squeezed it with this Zener limiter. So here's what it sounds with the lexicon room and the mono room. Why are you compressing it, Andy? Well, because I like to compress rooms. So if we go and bypass this, let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, now we're hearing the room reverb without the drums. Let's put the limiter on, hear the difference. It actually sounds not too dissimilar from the other room mic, like it sounds like it's in another room. So let's... That's a big part of the drum sound. One reverb thing, and that's it. By the way, what's on the drum bus? So I was talking about bussing earlier. The guitars are going to their bus, which have a compressor and an EQ. That's basically the whole thing. Drums are being essentially summed to mono if there's two mics, as I said earlier. And then all the drum mics go to the drum kit. Drum bus is what I call it, the drum bus. And on here, there's just whatever this is. I don't even know if this is doing anything. It looks, I guess it's boasting a little bit of... a little bit of low end, around 80 hertz. And then we have this black box, Plugin Alliance. This is just adding some color, some grit. And this is the bus compressor I'm using. I used to use this a lot when I was mixing in the box. This is the VBC Gray from Slate Digital. Doing a lot of heavy lifting. That's got some like 5 dB. And then after that, just hitting the EQ, a little bit of top, a very 1.5 dB of 16K, and then a limiter at it. That's the whole drum bus. So that's how everything is being bussed, and pretty much the mix. I mean, the EQ and the compressors are not the mix. The real key to the mix, it's performance and production, and routing, signal, how everything's coming together, because it's all sort of gluing together through the bussing. But it's really the performance of automation, which is grabbing a fader and actually writing that fader throughout the song. Look at this vocal track. That vocal is moving up and down throughout this entire song. And if we jump around to, I believe on piano, it's the same thing. I'm writing, performing that piano within the context of the song. What else? Maybe even electric guitar. You could see the guitars riding those levels all the way through the songs, or through the song. The automation is the dynamics of the musicians coming up and down and throughout that song. It's not interesting to listen to everything stay the same level. So the real magic is not in putting effects on things or putting plugins on things or high passing something. It's helpful to understand how to carve out space in a mix. But the magic is in the automation. So, find plugins that work for you, that you like. I have go-tos. I use almost all the same stuff, just like I use an 1176 or a SSL bus compressor. They're doing the thing that I like it to do, but the magic is in the song, the production, the performance, how it's captured, what I have to work with, and what I'm doing with it, with these faders. Now, if you don't use faders, you could use your mouse, but whatever you're doing, move those levels up and down as it is a performance in a song. It is musical. Music is dynamic. Even if you're slamming the vocals with the compressor, I'm still riding the crap out of that thing throughout this whole song. So if you don't have some faders, I would strongly encourage you to get even a single fader product where you can put your hand on a fader and look away from your screen and get into, as Jeff Ellis calls it, the feeling part of your brain, the emotional part, because sometimes when you're staring at the screen, you're soloing stuff, you think it sounds bad. It doesn't sound bad. There's just your visual part is impacting what you're hearing. Just listen. Take it out of solo, listen to it in the context of the song, and you will work so much faster. The moves you will make you so much happier. You'll have far fewer revisions, and it will be a better mix in the end. Last thing we'll touch on here is just our master fader before we close this up. I've got a hard high pass. I usually keep a couple tape plugins to just throw on there and see what a quick feel, what I like better. SSL G-Bus plugin, Mog Airband, and then a limiter. That's it. We just get the loudness how we like it. I do work with the limiter on basically the whole mix so that there's not some shocking change in levels when we go to master. So this is my mix bus. This is the whole process. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I'm gonna put this multi-track session to download for free. Go check that out if you wanna download these and do your own mix. Be great practice. This is just good bones of a song to improve your skills. All right, that's it for this mix breakdown video. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Also, if you appreciate these videos, let me know, because they are pretty long to make and they're not super YouTube sensational, but I know there's a lot of value in there for some of you who are learning and you want to see some of this stuff. So please let me know in the comments if you want to see more videos like this. We're doing a lot of productions here in the studio that we can do production and mix breakdowns on, some behind the scenes to share with you guys. The feedback from you guys is crucial to me deciding to spend time on this, because this takes a lot of time. I spent the last 2.5 days on this, if you can believe it or not. So let me know again down in the comments. Also check the description for the links to some of the equipment that we're using. I have that plugin must-have link down there, and then I'm also going to link these controllers that I use for mixing, as well as all the other gear that's in my desk, depending on your setup. If you're working on your own studio setup and you're trying to get things dialed in a little bit better, you can schedule a call with me on my website. And yeah, have some fun. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.